The rain was coming down in sheets as I stared out the window of my Seattle condo, the Space Needle barely visible through the downpour. I am Caspian, 44, and until a few weeks ago I thought I had it all. A successful career as an architect, a beautiful wife, Isolde, and a comfortable life. We'd been married for 15 years, a milestone I thought we'd celebrate with joy, not with the bitter taste of betrayal. Isolde worked as a marketing director for a tech company downtown. She was ambitious, driven, and always impeccably dressed. I admired her strength and independence, the qualities that had drawn me to her in the first place. But lately, something had shifted. She was distant, preoccupied, and her late nights at the office had become increasingly frequent. I chalked it up to a demanding job, never suspecting the truth. The first red flag was the phone. Isolde had always been meticulous about her privacy, but she'd started taking her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. She'd turn it face down when we were together, and her passcode, which had always been our anniversary date, was suddenly changed. My gut twisted with unease, a feeling I desperately tried to ignore. One evening, Isolde claimed she had a last-minute business trip to Portland. She packed her bags, kissed me goodbye, and promised to call when she arrived. But something felt off, a nagging intuition that wouldn't let me rest. As soon as she left, I found myself drawn to her laptop, a place I knew I shouldn't be. But the suspicion was too strong to ignore. I knew her password, a combination of our dog's name and my birth year. With trembling hands, I opened her email. My heart pounded in my chest as I scrolled through her inbox, searching for something, anything that would confirm my fears. And then I saw it. An email from someone named Jafar with the subject line, "Thinking of you." The email was sickeningly sweet, filled with intimate details and declarations of love. My blood ran cold as I read through their correspondence, each word a dagger twisting in my heart. They had been having an affair for months, meeting in hotel rooms, sharing secret moments, building a life together behind my back. Jafar, it turned out, was a consultant she'd been working with on a new project. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed in, shattered into a million pieces. The woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with, had betrayed me in the most profound way imaginable. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, followed by a burning rage that threatened to consume me. I spent the rest of the night in a daze, replaying their emails in my mind, trying to make sense of it all. How could she do this to me? Had our marriage been a lie? Was I so blind, so naive that I hadn't seen the signs? The next morning Isolde called, her voice cheerful and bright. "Just checking in, darling. Made it to Portland safe and sound. Meeting went well. I'll be home tomorrow evening." Her words were like a slap in the face. How could she be so casual, so nonchalant after what she had done? "Isolde," I said, my voice trembling. I know. There was a long pause, a silence that stretched on for what felt like an eternity. "Know what?" she finally asked, her voice suddenly guarded. "I know about Jafar," I said, the words heavy with pain and anger. "I read your emails," another silence, this one thick with guilt and fear. "Caspian," she began, but I cut her off. "Don't," I said, my voice raw with emotion. "Don't even try to lie to me. I saw everything. The emails, the plans, the lies. How could you do this to me, Isolde? How could you betray me like this?" She started to cry, her voice cracking with sobs. "I am so sorry, Caspian. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened, it just happened," I repeated, my voice laced with sarcasm. "You planned it, Isolde. You orchestrated it. You lied to my face for months. Don't tell me it just happened. We argued for hours, the conversation a blur of accusations, tears, and apologies." She tried to explain, to justify her actions, but her words were hollow, meaningless. The trust was broken, the damage irreparable. When she returned home the next evening, the atmosphere was thick with tension. We barely spoke, avoiding eye contact, the weight of our shattered marriage hanging heavy in the air. I couldn't bear to look at her, to see the woman I had loved transformed into a stranger. "I'm moving out," I said, my voice flat and emotionless. "I can't stay here. I can't be in the same house with you." She didn't argue, didn't try to stop me. She simply nodded, her eyes filled with tears. I packed a bag, gathered a few essentials, and walked out the door, leaving behind the life we had built together, the dreams we had shared, all reduced to ashes by her betrayal. I moved into a small apartment downtown, a sterile, impersonal space that mirrored the emptiness inside me. I spent my days at work, throwing myself into projects, trying to distract myself from the pain. But at night, the loneliness crept in, a heavy blanket that smothered me with despair. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't shake the image of Isolde and Jafar together, their hands intertwined, their bodies entwined. The anger and resentment simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. I wanted to lash out, to make her pay for what she had done, but I knew that revenge wouldn't bring me any peace. Instead, I focused on healing, on rebuilding my life, on finding a way to move forward. I started seeing a therapist, a kind, compassionate woman named Bront who helped me process my emotions, to understand what had happened, and to forgive myself for not seeing the signs. Bront encouraged me to focus on my own well-being, to rediscover the things that brought me joy. I started painting again, a hobby I had abandoned years ago. I joined a hiking group, exploring the beautiful trails of the Pacific Northwest. I reconnected with old friends, sharing meals, laughter, and support. I began to heal. The pain didn't disappear entirely, but it dulled, became more manageable. I started to see a future for myself, a future that didn't involve Isolde. 6 months after I moved out, I received a letter from a lawyer. Isolde was filing for divorce. I wasn't surprised. We had both known it was inevitable. I signed the papers, agreeing to her terms, eager to put the past behind me. But then, a few weeks later, I received another letter, this one from a private investigator. It contained a report detailing Jafar's background, his financial dealings, and his relationships with other women. As I read through the report, my blood ran cold once again. Jafar wasn't just a consultant. He was a con artist, a serial cheater who preyed on vulnerable women, manipulating them for their money and their connections. He had a history of affairs, bankruptcies, and lawsuits. He had left a trail of broken hearts and shattered lives in his wake. I felt a surge of anger, not just at Jafar, but at Isolde. How could she have been so blind, so naive, to fall for such a man? Had she not seen the red flags, the warning signs? Or had she simply chosen to ignore them, blinded by her own desires? I decided to confront her, to tell her the truth about Jafar, to warn her before it was too late. I called her, and we agreed to meet at a coffee shop near her office. When I saw her, I was shocked by her appearance. She looked tired, worn, her eyes shadowed with sadness. "Isolde," I said, my voice gentle. "I know about Jafar." Her face paled. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I handed her the report and she began to read, her eyes widening with horror as she absorbed the details of Jafar's past. When she finished, she looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know," she stammered. "He told me he was divorced, that he was a successful businessman. He seemed so genuine." "He's a liar, Isolde," I said, my voice firm. "He's a con artist. He's been using you." She started to cry, her body shaking with sobs. "Oh, Caspian," she said, her voice filled with despair. "What have I done?" I felt a pang of sympathy for her, a fleeting moment of compassion for the woman I had once loved. But the anger and resentment quickly returned, hardening my heart. "You made your choices, Isolde," I said, my voice cold. "You betrayed me, you lied to me, you destroyed our marriage. Now you have to live with the consequences." I stood up and walked away, leaving her alone with her tears and her regrets. I didn't look back. I knew that I had done everything I could. It was up to her to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. A few weeks later, I heard through a mutual friend that Isolde had broken things off with Jafar. She had confronted him with the report, and he had disappeared, leaving her with nothing but a broken heart and a mountain of debt. I felt a sense of satisfaction, a sense of justice. She had gotten what she deserved. But as I reflected on the events of the past year, I realized that revenge hadn't brought me the peace I had hoped for. It hadn't filled the emptiness inside me, hadn't healed the wounds of betrayal. The only thing that had truly helped me was forgiveness, not just forgiving Isolde, but forgiving myself. I learned that life is unpredictable, that people make mistakes, and that sometimes the only way to move forward is to let go of the past. I started dating again, cautiously, tentatively, but with a renewed sense of hope. I met someone new, someone who appreciated my honesty, my vulnerability, and my capacity for love. Her name was Gwyneth, and she was everything Isolde wasn't: kind, compassionate, and genuine. Gwyneth had also been hurt in the past, betrayed by someone she had trusted. We found solace in each other's company, sharing our stories, our fears, and our dreams. We built a relationship based on trust, honesty, and mutual respect. One evening, as we sat on my balcony watching the sunset over the Puget Sound, Gwyneth turned to me and said, "You know, Caspian, I think you're ready to love again." I smiled, took her hand, and said, "I think you're right." And as I looked into her eyes, I knew that I had finally found my way back to happiness, that I had survived the storm of betrayal and emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The scars of the past would always be there, but they no longer defined me. I was ready to embrace the future, to love again, and to live my life to the fullest.